Welcome to Ask the Security Guy. I am your host, Holly Magnuson, and today is episode number 68, recorded live on May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo, Sean, on 2021. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing good, Waiting until 5 o'clock.
Yeah, well, we'll save the celebrations till later.
Hey,
What are we?
I've got the grill ready, so I'm set.
Feel free during the broadcast if you've got any questions or comments, you can pop those in the chat. If you're watching this after the fact, you can reach out to us at iso@apu.edu. We'd love to get your comments. We would also love it if you haven't done so already. Subscribe, get the notifications. So anytime we go live, you'll be the first to know. So with that, Sean, what's today's topic?
Well, I thought it was a good time to revisit cloud privacy.
Privacy. Yeah, that word right there is enough. But specifically, cloud privacy. Okay, so what do you mean when you say cloud privacy?
Well, so we talk about storing our photos in Google Photos. We talk about using Dropbox to, since it's a great place to have our files and save stuff. We talk about Google Drive, and we talk about OneDrive with Microsoft. And all these cloud services that we've come to rely on pretty heavily, and especially when you consider, our iCloud, our Apple device or our Android device, which is tied to all things Google. So what could possibly go wrong?
Oh, pray tell, nothing, of course.
So, I thought it was, kind of telling and time to revisit this because I've had a lot of questions and the questions themselves are changing. And it feels to me like people are getting a little desensitized and not at the same time. So one of the questions that keeps coming up is my phone listening to me?
Sure seems to be sometimes.
So there's, okay. So there are a number of security researchers that have been testing this idea. And there's nothing conclusive yet. However, there have been, as recently as 2019, data breaches from Google, small ones, that in one case yielded over 1,000 voice recordings. Now, the voice recordings, Google tells you, if you enable the voice search or Google Now or OK Google on your phone, that they only record snippets.
Right.
Well, the recordings that were inadvertently released were definitely not just snippets. They were full conversations, several minutes long, and then the audio recording was very clearly of personal information that was being shared, via audio, but not over a phone call. So, and there were, more than one participant being recorded in some cases. And so Google says, well, we do not tie the voice recording data to an account. Well, in the case of these voice recordings, it didn't need to, because the people were speaking about their full names and their addresses and their phone numbers, and in some cases, their social security numbers. And all of that's in an audio recording. Nice. So it doesn't need to be tied to their account. The information was already in the audio. So it's just something to think about. I do not personally enable the voice activation features on my phone. However, I too have noticed that when I'm talking about certain things, all of a sudden, my search ads look different and my Facebook ads look different. So, I'm in the camp where there's no conclusive proof. Google and Facebook both, when braced with this or addressed, asked flat out, if this is going on, staunchly deny it. So, you have the official word from the company saying we would never do this. Mind you, these are the same companies that had, the breach like Cambridge Analytica and a few others where there was questionable amounts of data and data collection happening that was then hacked and released into the wild. So, I leave that to our users' discretion. Take it for what it is. As always, when we use our phones, when we use any free service, you trade something for that service.
Yeah.
It may
No
not
free
be
lunches.
exactly. It may not be money, but you're giving up something. So I want to pivot a little bit to let's just talk about file storage
Hmm.
and photos and videos. Where do people store all those? I mean, I have almost a terabyte of that stuff. Family videos, family pictures, kids pictures, documents I've collected over the years, and an unholy amount of email on my personal accounts. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you store all that stuff, right? Well, I mean, for a lot of us, the answer is Google or Yahoo or MSN or Hotmail or even Apple Mail. Gotta give a nod to them. Um, so your stuff's on their servers because let's face it, really what the cloud is somebody else's computers.
Hmm.
That's it. It's somebody else's computers with software that gives you access over the internet and makes it easy to use. But at the end of the day, it's your data on somebody else's box.
Yep.
So as we traverse into these newer waters in 2021, and where people are starting to think about their privacy again and the security of their data, what can these companies actually do? Okay, well, Google has algorithms that search for keywords in all of your email and any documents that you have stored in Google Drive. It also searches through Google Calendar. Now, it is programmatic, and they are looking for keywords and phrases that they say are to target ads. And based on results, I would have to agree that's what they're doing.
Hmm.
There has been a lot of questions raised over the years as to what all that algorithm is doing in your email inbox. But I mean, at this time, there's no real evidence to show it's doing more than what they say it's doing. However, think about what all's in your email inbox and
Yeah.
think about what you're not paying for.
Hmm.
Um, Again, you give up something for use of a free service.
Um,
Personally, go ahead.
oh no, I was going to say, and thinking and clarifying when we talk about like our university,
Mhm.
accounts, our Google Drive, our Gmail, are they running those algorithms against us, as an organization, or are you referring to the personal?
Right. So organizationally, we're using a different product. And by
Hmm.
contract, they are not allowed to search through the university stuff with those algorithms. We are paying Google for a service.
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah.
because we are a paid customer, we don't deal with a lot of the privacy issues or concerns that people who are using just the free accounts are.
Hmm.
So you're right. There is a very distinct differentiator there. And Microsoft, Apple, even MSN, with their paid versions of their services, all have a very different set of privacy controls
Yeah.
around paid accounts. And you'll notice that when if you ever use those paid services.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to clarify that because of our audience and potential audience, that there is a difference between free at gmail.com versus an organizational's Google instance.
Very much so. So another one is Dropbox. And Dropbox has made the news a number of times over the last decade for numerous data breaches, numerous security faux pas. They don't have the best track record ever, but they're quite popular
Hmm.
with a lot of people because they're pretty easy to use.
Yeah.
So um, one thing to consider, Dropbox, when you sign up for their service, you have to sign and part of their usage agreement that you sign off on says they have the right to monitor your files to make sure that you're not storing objectionable content on their
Hmm.
systems or content that violates some form of copyright law.
Right.
So think about that for a minute. how, if you have, say, intellectual property that's in the form of a Word document stored on your Dropbox that violates copyright law, which, well, let's face it, you're not supposed to be doing that in the first place. But let's use this as an example. That means Dropbox has the right to read your file, to check it, and to remove it or make you remove it based on their terms of service. What's involved in that? That means most likely, first, a machine is parsing through all of your data for objectionable content. Second, most likely, if a machine finds something, it is escalating to a human for verification.
Yeah.
That now means a Dropbox employee is looking at your stuff. So think about that for a minute. And it may be, a false positive. It may be that you legitimately own something and you can prove it. YouTube does the same thing with videos. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, "Oh, I uploaded this video of my kid's birthday party and it had this song playing in the background, and YouTube took it down for a copyright violation of the song."
Yep.
Okay.
They will also do that to streaming church services. If you play Bob Dylan's "You Gotta Serve Somebody" as part of the sermon.
Yeah. So think about how that's happening. There's machine learning and there's machines involved, and there's certainly algorithms that are capable of watching this stuff and identifying and acting. But there are also levels of escalation where this stuff goes to a human for verification. That means another human is now looking at your stuff. So it's something to think about. Every service out there comes with a trade-off. Now, for our other crowd who are more technically literate or just curious, I do have a couple solutions that don't involve ditching your phone and going back to analog. Because let's face it, they're useful devices and we live in that world.
Yeah.
Having Facebook on your phone inherently, it grants itself certain permissions on Android and on Apple both. You can, however, go into the app permissions of the phone, depending on what kind of phone you have, and see what permissions it has and revoke them or modify them. So you have that ability on the phone. At the Android system level, you can also control what apps have access to the mic, meaning what apps can listen. So you have controls there. And I shared with you earlier, Holly, there is a website called ADSS or adssettings.google.com. If you are signed into your Google account and you go to this URL, Google will gladly show you what all of the data points that they're tracking on you are. So when I went into my personal account, I see 198 active factors that they're monitoring on me.
Nice.
And a number of them are eerily accurate. kind of spooky. Facebook also has a similar functionality that they, after Cambridge Analytica, developed as one is a legal requirement and the other is self-preservation. But you can go into the ads settings on Facebook and see what they know about you as well. And you can turn stuff off. And you can make yourself borderline invisible to them as much as these tools actually do that. So it's better to be informed than to know what's out there than not. I'm certainly not trying to elicit a fear response in anybody, but I do want people to be aware of what they're sharing.
Yeah. Because it's at the end of the day, it's my choice. Do I want to have Facebook on my phone?
Right.
But having it on my phone, I need to understand the risk and what I'm giving permission to.
Exactly. So lastly, I wanted to just talk about some alternatives that can put some people's mind at ease. If you use cloud storage a lot and all of a sudden you're quite uncomfortable with it, there are alternatives. If you want to host your own stuff at home, there's a tool out there called The Helm. It is TheHelm.com. It's a paid product. It's a small server. It's run on all open source code. It's rigorously verified. The people that run the company are obnoxious about privacy and security. But they've done a beautiful job setting this up. And it has apps that work on your phone. You can automatically upload your photos the way you currently do to Google Photos or Dropbox or whatever service you use. But it runs at home and you control all the data. It can also handle your email accounts, your calendaring, your contacts. It's a pretty robust little solution.
Nice.
If you choose to keep your online presence and just want to safeguard some of your files, there's another service out there, also paid, called Boxcryptor. And Boxcryptor works with OneDrive, Google Drive, and Dropbox. They may work with Box.net as well. And they do basically encryption within those cloud services, which makes your files invisible to the cloud services. It's another layer of protection. It's another layer that you have to deal with when you authenticate and when you're trying to use your stuff. So there's the convenience versus security trade-off to bear in mind. Also, there's a cost to it. It's not free. But in this case, you get what you pay for.
Yeah. And sometimes your information is worth paying for.
Yes.
I mean, I feel pretty confident about my backup, where I back up all of my my hard drives too. I use Backblaze, and I feel pretty comfortable. Yes, I'm paying for it, but I know that if my hard drive blows up, there's all my stuff, including my photos.
Well, and if memory serves correctly, Backblaze also does encrypted backups where you maintain the encryption keys.
Possibly.
If I remember right, it was tied to your username and password were used in some form to set up the encryption keys. But it's unique to you. They can't see your stuff.
Right.
So another product out there that I'm actually a fan of is called ExpressVPN. For those of you who use personal VPNs to protect yourself when you're traveling or when you're in hotels or a coffee shop or whatever, personal VPNs are quite useful to protect your privacy and your security while you're on untrusted networks, basically. Any type of free Wi-Fi, I would absolutely keep this thing running out all the time. And I do pay for it. It's a product I use. ExpressVPN has a neat feature where their servers are, they run completely in memory. They never write to a disk. So all the information about your connections and the data that goes over them is secure and dies immediately when you disconnect.
Nice.
So there's no permanence to the data that is generated by your connection with ExpressVPN.
Nice.
Which, from a privacy standpoint, is good.
Right. And for the record, these are all unpaid advertisements. We are not receiving any monetary benefit. These are Sean's best tips here.
And these are all services I've used or use. So I'm not getting paid by them. If I wish I was, but unfortunately, I'm not.
You're actually paying them and talking about them. So hey.
Well, if I figure if I'm going to spend my money on something, it's worth sharing information about.
Yeah.
So anyway, take that for what it is. I hope that information is useful to some of you, and if not, feel free to hit us with other questions that you may have. We'll be happy to answer them.
So that's great. Thank you, Sean. Really good information here. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us at iso@apu.edu. I will do my very best to remember to put the links that Sean talked about in the comments so that you can find those quickly. And so, any final thoughts, Sean?
That's really it for today. But I think it's important for people to remember that privacy in this day and age is an illusion. So I don't get yourself up in a twist, or don't get too worked up, but be thoughtful about what you store where.
Yeah.
And make sure you're taking appropriate protections about your identity, about the things that you store online, that you have good backups, that you have good passwords and usernames, and basic good security hygiene.
Yep. So, well, with that, we will close this episode. Thank you for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you at our new time next month. We're going to still stick with 1 o'clock, you think, Sean?
Probably, yes.
Okay. So we will see you next month. Have a great day.
All right.